Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Captain Fizz and Mask Guy show. I am Captain Fizz.
And again, greetings from the seventh moon of thunder. I am that mask guy.
So, we had so much fun on Tuesday talking about Tim Burton because, it was his birthday and all. And we, enjoyed his movie so much that we've decided to do a top 10 Tim Burton movie episode as well as a top 10 Spielberg. Two of our favorite directors, producers, writers, whatever you want to call them. So much aspect into the movie genre that it doesn't matter what they did in a movie. Everything they touch is pure gold. So I believe we're going to get the Mask Guy to start on the top 10 Tim Burton movies that he enjoyed.
Okay, so yeah. Warning, there's probably no way that our lists are going to match up that well, because you definitely are more of a Tim Burton fan than I am, and you often went with stuff that he only produced or wrote for, probably, and same with the list that we're going to do with Steven Spielberg after the break. So hold on to your seats, ladies and gentlemen. Number 10 on my list is Tim Burton's version of The Planet of the Apes, starring Mark Wahlberg and Tim Roth. This, to me, I thought was, a pretty good action movie. It didn't really go off and completely reinvent the Planet of the Apes for me, but it was a fascinating movie. It was really enjoyable to sit through, and I loved Charlton Heston's cameo in there where he plays a dying ape, where he goes off and mutters the words, "Damn them all to hell." Which, if you realize that he was in the original Planet of the Apes, he goes off and mutters his words when he sees, spoiler alert, the Lady Liberty herself, the Statue of Liberty, buried in sand, realizing that he is in the distant future on planet Earth. Number 9 is, the first, a bunch of nonsensical movies that are probably going to find their way on our lists, and then that is Mars Attacks. This, of course, has many different actors and actresses in the movie, including Michael J. Fox, Jack Nicholson, Meryl Streep. Actually, not Meryl Streep. Glenn Close, excuse me. And a very young Natalie Portman before she went off to play Padme Amidala in the Star Wars prequel trilogy. I don't know, it's just, come on, even Tom Jones is in this, and so, this was a movie that completely makes fun of the whole alien invasion genre that has been around for, decades. And it was really quite funny to see it, especially with the way they finally beat the aliens with, going off and playing, on loudspeakers, yodeling, which I thought was just really hilarious for whatever reason. Number 8 on my list was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Now, if I wanted to go off and compare this to the Gene Wilder, Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory that came out years before, Charlie and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory would be my more favorite because I thought it was a better movie. However, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, starring Johnny Depp, was actually closer to the actual book by Roald Dahl, and I thought this was a really good movie. Johnny Depp's performance in it was a little creepy. It felt like he was channeling Michael Jackson to me. Which, the captain is kind of, groaning as I say it, but I think he kind of agrees with me on there. And just some of I understand they went off and they added some, an extra little storyline about Willy Wonka and his father. I understand why they went off and did it, because they were trying to find a way to give the movie better closure, but it felt weird. It's on my list because it was, enjoyable, and to a certain degree, and it managed to stay closer to the source material. Number 7 on my list is Big Fish, the story about a young man who goes to see his dying father and trying to get some truth out of his father, and his father just continues to tell these tall tales as he's dying. And the whimsical aspect of this is what I love so much. It was again a very Tim Burton movie. It was just so beautiful, and it felt really artsy and everything. It just I really enjoyed it, and for someone who really enjoys good storytelling, this movie really sang to me, and I thought it was just a masterpiece. I haven't seen it in quite some time, and I'm just talking about it makes me actually want to go back and actually watch it again. Number 6 on my list is the second collaboration on this list featuring Johnny Depp, and I'm talking about Sleepy Hollow. I love the story of Sleepy Hollow, going all the way back to when Walt Disney went off and did a short on it several years ago. And this, I thought it was really a very funny story. It gets kind of, goes a little bit into the occult and witchcraft. And it's just, there's an interesting love story there between Johnny Depp and Christina Ricci. No, not Christina Ricci. But anyways, with the main actor and actress in the movie. And it's just, I don't know, I was kind of gleeful. I mean, I remember seeing this movie in theaters, and I didn't flinch once, and I actually looked at it as being a really good detective story to figure out who was actually behind the Headless Horseman in it. And so when everything kind of comes together and you realize who's actually responsible, it's like, oh, that's pretty cool. Going on to next on my list is Batman Returns. This, of course, was the second movie in the Batman franchise featuring Michael Keaton, who I'm happy in recent years has went on to kind of a resurgence in his career. But this was one of those movies I absolutely loved. I loved Michelle Pfeiffer as Selena Kyle, better known as Catwoman, and Danny DeVito as the Penguin was just awesome. This, to me, is gotta be one of those movies that really embraced, not just the whole, Batman story, but what the comic book genre and comic book films should be all about. I know there was a lot of criticism about Michael Keaton of being, the slim guy, whereas opposed to, everyone else who's played Batman has been big, muscular people. But, I mean, the wit that Michael Keaton brought to Bruce Wayne and Batman, I thought was great. And, it made for a very enjoyable, albeit a dark movie. But then, again, Batman has to be dark. Number 4 on my list is Edward Scissorhands, the first movie that actually Johnny Depp and Tim Burton did together. And again, there's just this whimsical beauty to that movie. And the whole love story between him and Winona Ryder it was really wonderful. And I mean, at that time, Johnny Depp and Winona Ryder were actually together, and everyone has probably heard the story about that tattoo that Johnny Depp has on his neck that says Wino Forever. Originally it said Winona Forever. And just everything from beginning to end. I mean, you kind of see, it's definitely got its dark parts to it. And I love the cameo by Victor Price at the beginning of the movie. And just, I thought, it was, everything about this movie was just beautiful. And, I mean, it made fun of, people living in suburbia, and but at the same time is you a classic theme for Tim Burton. Kind of this fish out of water, and eventually everyone turns on him. But again, it was just such a beautiful movie. Number 3 on my list is gotta be Beetlejuice, which was actually the first, might have been the first Tim Burton movie I actually ever saw, and this dark twisted story. And as a kid, you remember thinking that I should be scared of this because a lot of this stuff really comes across as scary, but for whatever reason, I was deeply fascinated by it instead. I think actually a babysitter introduced this to me when my parents were away, because I don't think my parents would have allowed me to watch this movie back when I was a kid. I mean, this movie was back in 1988. I was only 10 years old at the time. But, it was just, I think, a wonderful story. And just, kind of scary and so silly. And Michael Keaton, again, is just wonderful in this movie. And I didn't realize this until I went back and saw the movie a couple years ago. But it features a very young Gina Davis and Alec Baldwin. And, they're good in this movie as well. But, I mean, Michael Keaton absolutely steals it. And there's, of course, they do a couple songs by Belafonte in there, including, the Banana Song. Which, I mean, it's just, that scene alone is just absolutely hilarious. It just talking about it's making both of us almost, laugh, because, I mean, just envisioning these people being forced to dance around, sing, going, Deo. Yeah, it's just absolutely great. Number 2 on my list, going back to another movie I mentioned earlier, I'm talking about Batman, from 1989. To me, I mean, this was, again, I touched on this earlier, how Batman, here, Michael Keaton, who, again, it was a comedian as opposed to an action star, goes off and gets this role as Batman, and I think in this day and age now, he would have just been eaten alive by social media for this, and Tim Burton would have just been booed, and who knows if this movie would have been given the chance that today, if it was made, as opposed to 16 years ago. But again, this was great. I think I've stated beforehand that Jack Nicholson is not necessarily my favorite actor to ever play the Joker, but he was extremely enjoyable. Kind of over the top on this. Honestly, as far as I'm concerned, the Batman series kind of went downhill after Michael Keaton left, and only to come back again when Batman Begins and the Dark Knight trilogy really was put together earlier this decade. And my number 1 drum roll, please. Someone? Anyone? Really? I'm not getting a drum roll? Oh, my goodness. Number 1 on my list is Alice in Wonderland. Again, I don't know, as a kid,